Hey, hello, everybody. This is Jeff Reinebold, and it's Coffee with the Coach, and it is Ottawa. Yep, that's Ottawa. I'm looking out my window, and that's Ottawa, the capital city of Canada. We're here to play the Red Blacks. Sorry I'm late, but the team meeting ran a little bit long tonight, so um, our team's getting ready to play, and it's an exciting time. And it's also an exciting time because we have an opportunity to bring a really amazing guest tonight. And again, in keeping with the kind of the tenor of this show, we bring people that love football, that are, passionate football fans, passionate football people, and have great knowledge about the game. And our guest tonight is exactly that. And it's Liam Blackburn from Gridiron Magazine. Liam, come on the show.
How you doing, Jeff? You well?
I'm well, man. Now, I give you that great intro, right? I pump you up, and you show up wearing a Jets sweater.
I didn't realize the video was on. I assume this would be a safe sanctuary for me to kind of wallow in my pity at the minute. Yeah.
No, seriously. Now, and I'm joking really about that because, I think personally, and I said this, and before the season started, that I think the Jets are doing some things to put that franchise back in order. And I'm a Robert Saleh fan. I think he'll do a really good job there. It's tough to watch guys like Becton go down, and again, the cornerstones of what I think is going to be a good offense one day. But the biggest thing to me is, let's talk about your young quarterback.
Yeah.
And as a Jets fan, how do you rate Wilson after 2 games?
Well, the problem in week one, I mean, you saw flashes in week one. You kind of saw why they spent the second overall pick on him. He can throw the ball a mile. His arm strength is incredible. Gets out of the pocket, makes plays outside the pocket, off-platform throws, all that sort of stuff. There's one play in week one where a guy hits him in the midriff and he slings this absolute bullet 30 yards to the sideline. And the problem in week one was that the offensive line just didn't protect him. The Panthers defense obviously made New Orleans look had an absolute field day against New Orleans on Sunday, so perhaps we're underestimating the Panthers defense. But the problem in week 2, obviously, when you face Bill Belichick, is you can't afford any mistakes, and Zach Wilson just had one of those days. And I'm kind of quite interested to see what you thought of it, really, because even the throws he was making that were completions were kind of really high. Guys were having to go up and make catches, and it just seemed like he was just too excitable, to be honest. And he's come from BYU, where last year he could make all these throws and kind of hero ball around and do pretty much anything that he wanted to do. And now he's coming into the NFL. And I thought Robert Saleh said it really well after the game. He said, this guy just needs to learn when to play boring football. When the simple completion's on, make that simple completion. Don't try and make the huge touchdown pass every game. And I think once he learns that and settles down, he'll be fine. The problem is, this is a really young roster. It's a rookie head coach. You've got Mike LaFleur calling offensive plays for the first time in his career. I was looking at the kind of backup quarterback situation. You think, when your young quarterback's there in a situation where he's thrown 4 interceptions, what he needs is a veteran guy around him, and just say, listen, calm down. This is the way you do things. When Sam Darnold came in the league, he had Josh McCown. When Mark Sanchez came in the league, he had Mark Brunell. When Geno Smith came into the league, he had Ryan Fitzpatrick. The backup on Sunday for Zach Wilson was Mike White, who has less NFL experience than he does. And so there's no one there. And the other thing is, this is an extremely young team. The youngest team statistically in the NFL. There's nobody that was on the roster, I think, pre-2015, other than your boy Thomas Morstead, since we signed him last week. So there's no one there to kind of put their arm around him and just say, listen, Zach, calm down. You've kind of got to go through the process. So there's going to be teething pains, but there are flashes there. You can see why they picked him. There are flashes there, and I just kind of hope we see more of those as the year goes on.
Well, I tell you what, there is a cemetery in New England, and there's a number of headstones there that are rookie quarterbacks that Belichick has done his master's over. So, I kind of saw that coming. I'm a big Wilson fan. I really loved what I saw out of him out of BYU. I'm a little concerned about what you talked about their ability to protect him, because he's a lot like Tua. He's not a big physical guy, and he plays with an edge. He plays with a swagger. He's not afraid to put his body at risk, and I just hope that he'll be able to survive the onslaught long enough that they get enough good players around him to really let his talent show. But, you know, I do think that the Jets are headed in the right direction. Talk to me about what's going on at Gridiron. You guys are doing a phenomenal job, and it's so amazing how, you know, we talked to Big Red a couple weeks ago, and when we had him on the show, I told him that I think what you guys do at the Super Bowl is phenomenal, number one, because it's like you invade the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl, like Media Row is not the same without you guys there. I mean, it's a completely different vibe. You have, you know, and I said this to Matt, you chose to go into an area where they said print media is dying. It's dead. There's no reason to go that direction. But yet you guys have gotten a tremendous following, a tremendous amount of interest in what you have in your magazine every week. What's the latest? What can we expect as football fans?
Yeah, so we go to print next week. I'll tell you, this is the worst time of the kind of magazine cycle, because when you write about players and then you see them on Sunday, you're just praying, don't get hurt, don't do your ACL, don't do your Achilles, because I've written 6 pages on you. For God's sake, don't get injured. So yeah, we're kind of putting the finishing touches to it. The next issue is going to be out, goes to print next week, and then goes out the week after to subscribers and readers, and kind of a London game special, because we're obviously going to have it out before that first Jets-Falcons game. So Neil's spoken to Brian Flores, obviously Miami are coming across for the second game. I'm going to speak to you on Thursday, all being well, doing some X and O's about both of the games. And I think it's kind of really fascinating, you know, 4 teams that there's new coaches, new quarterbacks, kind of exciting rookies. I think it's going to be 2 really good games. And then we've kind of got a few other things. I did a big piece on the Jets 2009, 2010 seasons when Rex was there and they made back-to-back AFC Championship games. So that was kind of fun to write. And today I did something on the London Monarchs, because it's 30 years since they won the World Bowl. So
no way.
Kind of really fun.
It's 30 years ago since they won the World Bowl?
30 years, yeah. 60,000 people at Wembley to see them beat Barcelona. Crazy, right?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
All right. Now, tell your story, because, again, it's so cool that, you know, and I think this is really important for young people to hear, right? And young aspiring journalists or whatever, that here you are growing up in the UK and you become a football fan and you found a way to make a career, make a life out of being a journalist, not about, you know, soccer, the Premiership or rugby or whatever, but about American football. Talk about that.
I imagine it's very similar to coaching, and that it's connection. So Matt Sherry, the previous editor, who you and I both know well, he's someone who, when I got my first job out of university, we worked in the same place, and we actually lived kind of, he was on the floor above me, I was below, which there's a lot of noise coming from that flat, as you can imagine. He doesn't do anything gracefully, you know, knocking stuff around and all that. But we stayed good friends, even though he's a Patriots fan, I'm a Jets fan. And in the end, he obviously went off to do Gridiron and kind of just snowballed from there, really. I was involved kind of at the grind level to start with. I kind of did my other jobs while I was kind of helping Matt out. And then kind of last October kind of took over from Matt properly as the editor. And I just got to tell you, it's just so much fun kind of sitting there and planning a 64-page magazine that's just entirely about the NFL. You know, we've got some great writers, Neil, yourself, obviously speak about the X's and O's with Simon Clancy, Tom Kissingberry, who's kind of a data guy, and Simon. We get other people kind of rotated every month. So yeah, it's really fun. But I would say it's one of those that's kind of like totally connections again. That I guess it's kind of like with coaching. You know, you work with someone, they get a job somewhere else, and then they kind of bring you on board, or you bring them on board. And journalism's kind of weird like that. It's kind of very much who you know.
All right, what's the future hold? What's the long game for you guys for the magazine, and where you want to go and what you want to do with it?
I think we just like to grow it as big as possible, to be honest. You know, it's kind of we've kind of last year for the first time we did a draft guide from Simon, which kind of got really well received. You know, that we have it's a British, obviously, NFL magazine, just because we print it over here, we distribute over here. America's much bigger. We'd love to be able to print over there and kind of distribute it over there, but just so much more difficult. We'd like to perhaps one day maybe expand into Europe. You know, Germany is obviously now a huge thing with the games going over there as well, and kind of perhaps we expand it a bit digitally more in America and that kind of thing. So it's kind of pleasing that to come out of a pandemic kind of really strongly, because I think that was the big worry with like a lot of companies that, you know, were struggling. And I spoke to one of our print distributors, and he just said, you guys must just have like a really strong core audience because your sales figures haven't dipped. We get sold in supermarkets and WH Smiths and things like that. And obviously they were closed for 6 months, so people couldn't go in, but we were still selling copies because people just love it. Basically, they're diehard fans and they just love reading about NFL.
Well, Liam, this show, we have listeners and viewers from Hawaii to Russia. And
yeah,
obviously, everybody loves information. Everybody loves hearing the takes about players, and you guys do a phenomenal job of interviewing players and inside. And I thought Simon's draft thing was right, spot on. Right.
Yeah.
And there were a couple things we didn't agree on, but I thought, wow, he had really done his homework. I think you need to commend him for that. But if somebody's out there in another part of the world, whether it's Canada, Hawaii, the United States, Germany, wherever, how do they subscribe? What do they do to get the magazine?
Yeah, well, they can go through the website. We sell it via the website, and we do ship all over the world. There's obviously additional shipping costs if it's going out to Australia or New Zealand, but you can also buy a digital version, which comes out at the same time as the print version, and read it on tablet, PC, phone, whatever you want to read it on. And yeah, that's kind of the way we do everything. So if you're abroad, you can still sign up and still subscribe it. And as you say, we although we are British based, I like to think we kind of do stuff that maybe other publications in America don't do, just because we kind of have that like time frame where we can do a bit more long form stuff and go into the weeds, and kind of, rather than just doing news because it's so out of date so quickly, we kind of have to do those more long form features. And I like to think that's what people like to read about as well.
All right, 2 weeks into the season, right? As a guy who studies all 32 teams, what's your 2 week takeaway? I would say this is your far too early reaction, but give me a 2 week reaction.
Okay, I know you have a Steelers guy coming up next, so bear in mind that I predicted the Steelers were going to go below 500 for the first time in the Tomlin era. So just bear that in mind. Yeah, I just feel like as though they've got a really tough schedule this year. They're going to Lambeau, they're visiting Kansas City at the Chargers. It looks like Baltimore got a big win on Sunday night, so I kind of still feel kind of confident about that. But my biggest takeaway was, I was looking this morning at the undefeated teams. There are 7 undefeated teams, and 5 of them didn't make the playoffs last year, which just shows you kind of how this season can flip on its head. And I looked at the AFC West and I thought there's potentially 3 playoff teams there in the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos. But the Raiders have really surprised me. I think we all looked at what Gruden done in the offseason and said, okay, he's completely revamped the offensive line. The defense, they're kind of giving up on high draft picks. Arnett, the corner, the edge rusher, whose name escapes me, Cleveland Farrell, who they got from Clemson. They've given up on these guys. They brought a lot of veteran guys in. Is it going to work? They paid Kenyon Drake a load of money when the running game looked good. And, through 2 weeks, to go and beat Baltimore and Pittsburgh, 2 really good defenses, and Derek Carr absolutely line up. That surprised me. And the Panthers as well, obviously had a close look at them in week 1 when they played against the Jets. Sam Darnold, I always thought that Sam Darnold, if you put him in the right system, could win games in the NFL. And it's amazing what Joe Brady's doing there. I said it on something I was on the other day. I think Joe Brady this time next year, we're probably talking about him as a head coach, because I think he's putting in Darnold in positions to succeed. And that defense, they spent all those draft picks last year, all of the draft picks on that young defense. And the pickups that they've got this year as well. Hassan Reddick, who obviously Matt Rule knew from Temple, he's been brilliant. Brian Burns on the other side. Shaq Thompson looks reborn at linebacker. JC Horn playing really well as a corner. So if that defense can keep that up, and they've got the Texans obviously on Thursday, so you think they go 3-0. I think you're looking at the Panthers as a playoff team, which is something I didn't think at the start of the year. And I guess the big one for me is kind of the Bucks Rams on Sunday, because I kind of fancy the Rams to go all the way this year. We obviously spoke about Stafford and kind of what he can do for the last issue of Gridiron. So that's a mouth-watering game for this week.
Well, there's no question that's probably the focus game of the the week next week. But I want to kind of dovetail on what you talked about with the Panthers, because Colin Thompson's a really good friend of this show, the tight end for the Panthers. He's been on a couple of times, and he talks about the chemistry and kind of the Matt Rule factor, about how he is able to motivate people and get the best out of his players and all of those things, which I think is really underrated when you start, because he wasn't a sexy choice.
Yeah,
as a head coach, he wasn't the young, dynamic offensive guy. That's kind of the way hirings have gone lately. But I tell you what, Phil Snow, his defensive coordinator, has done a phenomenal job. A phenomenal job, because they took a New Orleans offense and limited them to the least first downs, I believe, since 1999.
Yeah, 6 first downs.
That is absolutely incredible when you consider what they've been able to do. And yes, they use draft capital to build that defense. But I'm going to tell you something. That's amazing what they've been able to accomplish. And like you say, they go 3-0, and the confidence starts to build in Carolina. Carolina's going to be a tough out getting to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a perfect situation for Darnold in that in both of the games they've got up and he's not been asked to be doing loads of stuff. I saw a tweet from Mike Tannenbaum saying that I think he was one of the quarterbacks with the fewest throws attempted into tight windows. You know, they didn't put him in situations where they were asking him to do too much. He's obviously got McCaffrey there as a check down option at all times. He's going to get a load of yards every game. The offense is going to run entirely through him. But then, you know, you look at someone like Robbie Anderson, who at the Jets was kind of just a deep threat guy. They didn't pay him any money because they thought he was a number 2 receiver at best. Comes in last year, Joe Brady completely revitalizes his game, and he looks like a new player. And the thing with Rule is that I was really impressed with. When he coached at college, he coached both sides of the ball. So he's a really well-rounded coach. And I think for a young roster as well, having a guy who's come straight from college and kind of knows that kind of age group, I think that's really helped as well. And as you say, you've got the veteran there in Phil Snow as well to kind of master that defense.
Well, you know, when you look at the success rate, and I think Urban's finding this out in Jacksonville, you look at the success rate of college coaches who go on to professional football, it has not been very good historically. You go all the way back to, you know, you're a Jets fan, you go back to Lou Holt's experiment with the Jets. I think he lasted 1 season out of North Carolina State and then went back to college. And, you know, like Saban, didn't last in Miami, goes back to Alabama, wins national championships. Holtz did the same thing at Notre Dame. I think it takes a special kind of guy. And maybe if you're at programs like Baylor and Temple, you have a better appreciation for your players as opposed to being at the highest level college program where you're really the king. Because I think Urban has found out you can't do everything your way all the time. And the league, you know, obviously with the practice, how he got his wrist slapped for long practices and all of that, I think he's going through a tougher adjustment than maybe a Matt Rule would have coming out of a program like Temple or Baylor.
Yeah, and it's almost a completely different job in the way that, you know, the recruiting process, you're going out and recruiting high school kids when you're in college, and you've got to go and persuade them to join your team. And, you know, those guys are in the building 24/7 because it's a dorm environment. And then you go into the NFL and, you know, you might see them at mini camps, which obviously have been shortened in compared to what it was in the past. But then you've got guys going all over the place. They're going back to their homes. They're not around all the time. You know, you're dealing with people who are 10 years older now, you know, human beings who've maybe got kids and that kind of thing. They're completely different jobs. And I think Matt Rule deserves an awful lot of credit for being able to transfer that from one to the other. And as you say that with Colin Thompson, you know, the guys obviously love playing for him. And it's a shame because the Jets interviewed him for the head coaching job before they gave it to Adam Gase, and they wouldn't hire him at the time because they wanted to bring in, I can't remember who it was, but they wanted to bring in an experienced defensive coordinator because they thought he was too young to kind of do that job. And yeah, just another regret on the long Jets train.
Well, I tell you what, no regrets having you on the show. Obviously, fantastic insight. It's wonderful to hear you talk about, you know, not only your love of the Jets, but also what you're doing with Gridiron. And again, for all you fans out there, you can go to their website and you can get the magazine. It is a tremendous read every week. And you and I are going to sit down and talk a little football tomorrow, are we not?
Tomorrow or Thursday, yeah, we're going to go through the London game. So yeah, kind of keen to see what you think about how kind of maybe go a bit more in depth about maybe how the Jets can kind of get the best out of Zach Wilson, and maybe what Arthur Smith's brought a little bit to Atlanta, and kind of talk a bit about Flores and that kind of cover zero loving defense as well.
Well, I tell you what, it'll be a blast because I love talking ball with you every time we get a chance to spend a little time together. Liam, thank you so much for being on Coffee with the Coach. And again, listeners, go to Gridiron on the website. It is great. It is a great read. I know if you read one issue, you'll buy them all because it is fantastic. Thanks again, Liam.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Speak soon.
All right, mate. Thank you. Mikey, there is a guy right there that knows his football and loves his football, and it is great to have him on the show. those guys at Gridiron really have done an amazing job, all the way back to when Matt started the magazine, and Liam and Big Red and everybody that's involved, Simon Clancy, everybody that's involved with their magazine. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for fans to really get some good football talk, in a magazine form. Hey, Fred Flunk had a couple really interesting takes today, and I want to address them because he hit me with them what's up, Fred? He hit me with them on Twitter, and he talked about it looks like Dallas has got a running game. And I'm going to tell you something. I was impressed with what the Cowboys did. I mean, I questioned some coaching decisions during that game. You go for a punt block and rough the punter with, little time left in a half on a fourth, and I think it was 20 or something like that. They did enough to win the game, but I'm going to tell you, that kid Pollard that they have at running back, and I said this last year, and I'm going to stand by it again. I believe he is the best running back in Dallas. That kid Pollard is electric when they put the ball in his hands.
He's far better. He should be starting. And the only reason he's not is because of Ezekiel Elliott. And that's the only reason. I liked that game, that Chargers Cowboys game. There was a few mistakes and stuff, but in terms of a neutral watching it, I really enjoyed it. Like both offenses look good.
Well, you know what? Herbert was, I thought, really good. And he's still a little erratic with some throws. He doesn't, if you compare him to the elite level throwers, and I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers, watching Aaron Rodgers last night, there were some balls he left inside of guys and didn't throw them away from the defender and all that stuff. But golly, Belichick says this every year about you. Before you can win, you got to stop from losing. Well, when you have first and goal at the 4-yard line in I think it was 14-14 game late in the fourth quarter, you can't line up in a bad formation and take a penalty and then get a taunting penalty, right? Yeah. And then you've got Dallas. You kick off to Dallas, they get the kickoff, and they get a penalty on the kickoff and have to start their drive inside the 10. And I was channeling Julian Edelman talking last week on TV about, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because it's like nobody wanted to win that game. And to me, Michael, that's the difference between the elite teams and the talented teams, because the elite teams don't make those mistakes.
Like the Raiders, Jeff.
Nah, don't go that way with me.
See, we've got that from one.
I'm going to pump the brakes, dog. As much as I love the silver and black, I'm not ready to put that in that category yet. But
both me and you are 2-0 as it stands.
I do think Derek Carr deserves some props, bro. Owen Thomas says, "Hello, Coach. How about them Raiders?" Well, I'm just going to tell you, the Raiders are better than they've been. I think they being 2-0 is certainly huge. You got to remember, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. All right. It's a 17-game marathon. We'll see how we hold up through the process. But gosh, it's good for me to see Derek Carr get some of the accolades. He threw for 400 the first week, almost 400 the second week. He's doing an outstanding job. Waller's a tremendous talent. That defense, Crosby, he looks like, he doesn't look like a great player, but man, oh man, when the lights come on, the guy plays. And so, you got to give them credit. They're 2-0, and there are a lot of teams in the league that would like to be 2-0.
Good time for the Raiders to play the Dolphins this Sunday. That's all I'll say. We've got a guest. Jeff, we'll do our picks after if you want for the weekend. If you want after, but we've got Simon from the UK Steelers pod on. Will I bring him on? Yeah,
bring him on. Bring on that Steeler fan.
Let's go. Obviously, Steelers, Jeff, massive team in Ireland with the Rooney family, so I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Simon, welcome to the show, my man. How are you?
How's it going, Coach? Nice to speak to you. Thanks so much for having me on. It's an honor.
Where are you calling us from, brother?
I'm from Old York.
Old York, as opposed to New York, or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, man, tell me something. Tell me about this Steeler love that you have. How did that get born?
It's funny. I always say on our show that I have the most boring story possible when it comes to choosing an NFL team. I sat down one day, turned on the Sky broadcast, which I watch many of with you on, by the way. I think this might have been just before your time. And when I was choosing a team, if I'd done it organically, I always say I probably would have been a Seahawks fan because they were the team that was sort of on the rise at the time. And that Michael Crabtree, Richard Sherman game was the one that really got me jazzed for the sport. But at the start of that season, I just chose the team with the one logo that I recognized, and it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Gone to the wrong side of the logo. Just purely from a few videos I'd seen and hats that people had worn. So it's the most boring story you'd ever hear. I've got way more interesting stories with the guys on my podcast, but it's turned into a multi-decade long love affair, I imagine.
Okay, so now talk about that love affair. Did you found the pod? How did it become the UK Steelers podcast, which is a hugely successful podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. It started about 3 years ago now. We're into our third season. I got in touch with a couple of guys from the UK Steelers fan group on Facebook that we used to talk for years before we started the podcast just on Facebook. So we got familiar with each other. I reached out to Gavin Marshall and Dave Hart, who I do the podcast with. We started that show and just clicked like that. If you just start talking to a few guys like you've known them forever, we just had great chemistry. And then the real boon for us was that about 5 or 6 episodes in, just through the strangest connection you could imagine, we got Rich Cetrone on, who's now our 4th chair on the show. And he's basically been a Steelers fan for as long as you can imagine. Rich, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, he's 60 years old. He was there when the Immaculate Reception happened. He's a Hollywood stuntman. He's a big time. Did you watch Army of the Dead on Netflix, Jeff?
Yep.
He played the head zombie Zeus in that movie.
Holy! You got celebrities in your podcast. Holy!
I mean, he's been a great boon for us because not only that, not only does he have the star power, which he definitely has, but he has all the knowledge in the world about the Pittsburgh Steelers. You won't find a more knowledgeable fan in the world. So we just have great chemistry and play off each other, and it's as much about having fun as it is about talking Steelers.
All right, I got to tell you this story because it's amazing. Neil and I are at the Super Bowl. Man, it's been a bunch of years now, probably 8 or 10. And we're just getting inside the huddle up and running. And Henry Hodgson had given us the ability to use the stage, the NFL Network stage on Radio Row. And we had no script. We had no guests. We had nothing. We were just winging it, right? And so I said to Neil, hey, there's Rocky Blyer, right? And Rocky was about maybe 3 rows away from us, sitting by himself, eating a hamburger, waiting to go on somebody else's show. And so, as we say in Hawaii, I got no shame. So I walked over and I said, hey, Rock, I'm from Sky Sports NFL, and we got this show Inside the Huddle. Would you mind coming on and being a guest? And I swear to God, Simon, he's eating his hamburger, right? As we're talking. He's got a mouthful of hamburger. He picks up his napkin and wipes his face off, and he goes, sure, right? So he comes over, and Neil sees me bringing Rocky Blyer to the stage, right? And I can't believe what's going on. And so we sit down and we go immediately. And then Neil's such an incredible professional, right on it. He's on it the whole way. He talks about, fighting back, the book that he wrote about his time in Vietnam when he lost his foot and came back and played for the Steelers and all that stuff. And Rocky puts down his hamburger and he's on the stage with us. And he's got a big Steeler Super Bowl ring on his finger, right? So we said, Rock, can we show that to our viewers back in the UK? And he kind of does like this, and he's got his ring there, And then he goes, oh, wait a second. And he reaches into his pocket, Simon, and he pulls out 2 more Super Bowl rings.
I love that he carries those around. He just has them in his back pocket all the time.
It was if we have Inside the Huddle for 20 years, we'll never have a better interview than Rocky Blyer like that. But
that's how the best moments come about, right? It's just totally random occurrences.
Absolutely. Hey, now, I got to talk about your black and gold Steelers because a huge win on Buffalo on Sunday previously. And a lot of people, didn't see that coming. I was one.
I was too, yeah.
And then, you did it in a kind of un-Steeler-like way. You blocked the punt. Special teams have not been a Steelers strong suit for a number of years. But you block a punt, score a touchdown. Obviously, the defense, TJ Watts earning every penny of that new contract that he's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But even with Najee Harris, The running game's kind of hit and miss yet. Where do you see this team going down the stretch, Simon? Where do you think this thing can be? Can they win? Can they win 9 games, 10 games?
Yeah, they can definitely win 9 or 10 games. I always struggle to see the Steelers. I mean, it's like the most cliche fact in the NFL now, right? That Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. But the Steelers are always going to be competitive in that way because they're so well coached, they're so well organized. The real problem is, and this is something we've been talking about on the podcast now for way over a year, is where do the issues lie on offense? Because we had such a great time with the Killer Bees, with Antonio Brown and Big Ben, and now we're in this new dearth of offense where we actually have great pieces. If you look at the offense, we've got Chase Claypool and Juju and DJ. It's such a great trio of wide receivers. Najee now added to that backfield. It's a great skill group. So the question is, where does the fault lie? Is it scheme? Obviously, we've just got Matt Canada in, who runs kind of a very new kind of college style scheme with a lot of motion and pre-snap motion and things like that. Is it Ben? Is Ben just over the hill? Is Ben washed? Has he fallen off a cliff? That's what I think a lot of the national media want to say. Or is it the offensive line? I think it's probably a combination of all three to some extent. I still think the Steelers will be on that cusp of the playoffs one way or another. But if they want to go any further, if they want to avoid embarrassment like they got with the Browns at the end of last year, they really need to get this offensive line gelled together. I was just watching the All-22 for the podcast tomorrow. And the problem is not with any one specific offensive lineman. It's just that on every running play, there's a mistake. Someone causes an error, whether that's Chuck Okorafor over on the right tackle side, or whether it's our rookie center, Kendrick Green. It's a very new offensive line. I mean, you don't see changing offensive lines like that much in the league, do you, Jeff? I don't think.
Well, I tell you what, this is an interesting topic to me because a friend of mine coaches the offensive line in Pittsburgh, and Adrian Clem, who played for us in Hawaii and was I think a 2nd or 3rd round draft choice of the Patriots, and then coached with me at SMU. Adrian's a hell of a football coach, but he's got a lot of young guys that he's trying to mold into it. There's 2 areas of football team where you got to have continuity and you got to have communication and you got to have guys playing together. And number 1 is the secondary on defense, and number 2 is the offensive line. It takes time. And, as a guy who is a football observer but not a Steeler fan, I think you got to exercise a little patience with that group and recognize that, there's talent there. They've got to all get on the same page. There's no substitute for experience, particularly in picking up stunts and games. And like you said, there are technique errors. Almost it seems like there's a breakdown at one position on every single play. But it's hard when you're a Steeler fan, I'm sure, and you go back to Mike Webster and Tunch Ilkin and all the great offensive linemen and the power running game that the Steelers had with the bus and but as long as the defense can keep them close, right? Mm-hmm. And Ben can deliver enough to that talented group of wide receivers, I think the offensive line will come. And what's tough about, in my opinion, for the Steelers is you're in a heck of a division. You've got Baltimore, you got Cleveland. Cincinnati's not a doormat anymore. So you just got to win enough games to just try and get a wild card berth, in my opinion. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, Steelers fans aren't going to like that, Jeff. They're going to say that we should win this division. I picked the Browns to win our division. I was the only one to do so on our podcast. Everyone else chose the Steelers. So I get called the negative one. I don't know if that's fair or not. Maybe I'm just the realist, but I totally agree with you. I mean, there's no parts on that offensive line, except maybe one, that I would advocate for replacing. I think there's a lot of young talent there, like you said. It's just that it really needs time to gel. I still think that the defense is enough to win a lot of games. But we saw in this game, just going with your Raiders, as soon as TJ Watt went down, the pressure wasn't quite there as much in Derek Carr's face, and he was able to go off, and throw for nearly 400 yards. So, and, Joe Hayden was out, Devin Bush was out, so that helped on the back end as well. I mean, the defense really struggled later in that game. But if we have one injury, I think Joe Hayden might be one of the biggest Jenga pieces to steal a Damashekism in the NFL, because our secondary is thin behind him. We like that a lot of spots. A lot of really hitters and stars. Keep away a couple of guys on that defense, it will become decidedly average pretty quick, and you can't have that.
Well, welcome to the economics of the National Football League, because when you pay a guy like you're paying Watt, you got to backfill that with some low salaries, obviously. Give me now. I'm going to ask you a question. This is kind of an American question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you know what Mount Rushmore is?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think it's 3 or 4 iconic presidential, faces that have been carved into that mountain. If you were going to carve a Steelers Mount Rushmore, who would be the ones that are up there?
That's so tough, because the thing is that I've got to look on both sides, because there's such a deep history with the Steelers. But I'm such a Johnny-come-lately that I don't want to be just getting guys on that are really new. I think you'd have to go Chuck Noll. I think just the Super Bowls, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I think he's got to be up there. I'm going to be selfish and put Troy on there. Troy Polamalu. I think he's the best safety of all time. Then I would probably go. Who else? See, the trouble now is because Rich is going to. Obviously, Rich I was telling you about. He's going to get really upset with me if I don't go for some of the Super Bowl champs in the 70s. I'm going to be selfish and go my kind of way and go James Harrison. He's my favorite defensive player of all time, and then I'll throw him a bone and go Terry Bradshaw.
Well, I tell you what, you start thinking about it, it is hard because you left off Jack Lambert, you left off Mean Joe Green, you left off Lynn Swann, but that's the problem. That's one of the quote problems if you're a Steeler fan trying to do that exercise is there are so many great players in the history of that franchise. And so many iconic guys. And I'm with you on Harrison because I remember him being a twice cut cast off that got sent to NFL Europe. And then they found out that he was a linebacker, but he sure could rush the passer. And he carried around, I don't know if you know this, but he carried around a Rhine Fire bag his entire career at the Steelers. When he was an All-Pro and winning Super Bowls, because he wanted it to remind him of where he had come from. And that's a tremendous tribute to guys, work ethic and belief in himself and all of that.
And he's gone.
I lost him.
He's not coming back. That's it. I didn't know whether that was you or Jeff, and then Jeff started talking, Simon, and then I was like, "It's definitely Jeff."
I wasn't sure if it was just me. I was kind of getting through it.
I don't know if you remember the shows from last year. Well, maybe from the off season when he was in Hawaii, and he was on dial-up ASDL sort of stuff, and it was
I did see a few.
I was sitting here panicking every show, please don't do that, and I thought we were over this. Well, I'm presuming Jeff will be back in the next minute or two, but obviously, thank you for coming on the show. And it was down in Dublin on Sunday. There's a load of boys watching the Steelers against the Raiders. What was your thoughts of that game on Sunday? Because obviously, didn't win a game, but did you find some pros, regardless, or how did you find it?
It's so tough, Matt, because we came off such a high in the Buffalo game, and I was kind of preaching calm a little bit. I was like, this was a great performance in a lot of ways, but we also did get lucky in a few senses. We aren't going to get a block punt every week. We need to start putting up some points on offense. And I think what I saw on Sunday was kind of the embodiment of all my worries, which is that this offense can't move the ball. It gets stuck behind the sticks. The defense is excellent, but thin. And, is like I was saying to Jeff, can struggle if a guy like TJ Watt goes out and they can't get consistent pressure. So, I'm worried. I mean, we're recording the podcast tomorrow, and I'm worried that I'm going to be overly negative. And I have been known to react too wildly to a single game. So I'm hoping I can be talked off the ledge by my more mellow-headed co-host, but we'll see.
You've a decent couple of weeks. Bengals this week, always an interesting game, but then the Packers the week after. Oh boy.
It's
Oh
going to be
boy.
tough, man. I mean, I'm worried about this Bengals game. You cannot look past this Bengals side, especially if Joe Hayden doesn't make it back. I mean, that's a 3 wide receiver core that rivals ours. So, yeah, it is going to be a tough game, and I think that's going to be a lot closer than maybe some people will think.
Absolutely. I don't know if Jeff's coming back. I'm not gonna lie to you.
You might have lost him.
Do you know
for good,
what?
man.
I think his Wi-Fi is gone, right? I actually think it's gone. I'm gonna put in there's a couple of questions here just in the meantime. I'm put up last week's Sky fixtures and panicking that. There's a question from Owen Thomas, right, Simon? If Big Ben's pec is injured come Sunday, in brackets, didn't realize he had pecs. Does Rudolph get the win over Burrow? What do you think, man?
It's funny because I think this is going to be a big topic tomorrow. Is do we play Mason even if Ben is kind of maybe ready to go, because you'd rather save him for the season? And Ben got hit 10 times on Sunday, so if Ben is not 100%, I would maybe advocate playing Mason in this game. I'm not a huge Mason Rudolph fan. I don't think he's the future. I do think he's maybe dogged on a little bit hard by like general NFL audiences because they saw him start that season and it wasn't inspired. But as a guy who can come in and fill a game for you, got to remember he won 8 games when he played the full season as a backup. So this guy's not the end of the world. He's just not an advanced reader of the field. So I would, in answer to his question, can he win? Yes, he can. Will he? It's hard to say.
I've got a surprise for you. I think Jeff is here now. I've muted Jeff. Let's see if he can hear us. Jeff, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you see me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you perfectly. So it's all good.
All right.
There he is.
All right.
There
Hey,
he is.
you know what, Simon?
Good.
I don't know what the heck happened with the internet, but I thought that must be something from above, because a life sign of some sort. Guess where I am right now?
I don't know. Pittsburgh.
I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
I should have known that.
Okay, we are playing this weekend against the Ottawa Red Blacks, and guess who the Ottawa Red Blacks have just signed in the last 2 weeks, and we may see tomorrow night. So I need a scouting report from you because you are a Steelers fan, and tomorrow when I talk to the players before the game, I need to be able to relate something about this player. The latest quarterback signing for the Ottawa Red Blacks is Duck Hodges. Yeah. Give me a scouting report, man.
Duck Hodges is a cult hero in Pittsburgh, man. You remember watching that game where we went to I think it was the Coliseum, right, and play the UK Steelers there, quack. Yeah, I mean, he is so. We love Duck Hodges down in Pittsburgh. We'd sign him back here on our practice squad in a second if we could. Listen, Duck isn't going to blow you away with his arm or with his kind of movement ability or anything like that. But what Duck's got is heart. Duck is like the guy who would star in one of those underdog football movies. I imagine that Duck could rally any team around him.
Hey, wait a second now. Not tomorrow. He can star in any underdog movie he wants, but not tomorrow, buddy. Not tomorrow.
I don't know, Jeff. I might be rooting on Duck.
Well, it'll be interesting. It's funny because I remember when he came in, and they had that just unbelievable series of unfortunate things at quarterback, and all of a sudden, here comes this kid from Samford University, and he had a great college career at Samford, but undrafted guy from small college football, and here he is playing in the NFL. And you know what? I thought he really equated himself very well.
He really did
as a Steeler. And I'm always hopeful for guys that get their dream come true. And like Doug Flutie, if he comes up here and tears it up, maybe he'll get a chance to go back and Warren Moon and all the other guys that have been able to make that transition. Certainly hard to compare him to those guys who are CFL Hall of Famers and NFL Hall of Famers, but certainly it's an opportunity for him to play and get more film and prove that he can. So I'm excited for him, and it'll be great to have him in our league.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that. I really hope he comes back to the NFL sometime soon. I think he's definitely got a place there. He could definitely carve out, even if it's a backup role. I think he's the kind of guy you want on your team.
Hey, you know how just iconic the Steelers are, right? there is a show that my wife is absolutely crazy about, and it's called This Is Us. And it's kind of a, do you know the story? Do you know
I don't know. I don't know it, but I've seen the commercials so many times during football that I get the idea.
Brother, you need to watch it, right?
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell you something. You'll score points with your wife because she'll think you're really a sensitive guy and all that stuff. Watch it, and I'm gonna tell you. But a lot of it centers around, it's a family from Pittsburgh, and the dad loves the Steelers. Actually, the whole family loves the Steelers. And, that's one of the cool things about the Steelers. I mean, they have that kind of generational love,
Yeah.
and that to me is, one of the things I love about going to the UK is you talk to soccer fans or football fans in the United Kingdom, and, whether they're Chelsea fans or Man U fans or, it doesn't matter where they're fans of. Typically, it's because their father took them to a game, and their grandfather took their father, and their grandfather's father took their father. It's just, and I think that's really cool. And I think that's one of the awesome things, the iconic things about the Steelers. Uniforms have never changed. Logo has, the Steelers are the Steelers. When you see that uniform, that's the Steelers.
And it's Pittsburgh, right? Because they share those colors with the Pirates and the Penguins. It's a sports town, and I got into the Steelers, and then it became a city thing for me. And I've only been out to Pittsburgh once. Unfortunately, I'd love to go out again. We wanted to try and plan something, but all this COVID stuff happened, and that set us all back a bit. But we would love to go back out there and maybe do a show out there, meet up with Rich, obviously, and. We're continuing that. Gav, who I do the show with, he sits there and watches every Steelers game with his 8-year-old daughter, who's now in love with the Steelers, and she was featured on Big Ben's website because she drew a drawing of him and sent it over to him. So that generational thing's coming over here as well. We're not all Jags fans.
That is football. That's Steeler football. Hey, if you ever do get to Pittsburgh and it's during this time of year, make sure that you let me know, because we are just a short 3-hour trip up the interstate. And we wear black and gold just like the Steelers. So I know you guys would love it. Hey, you know what, Simon? Thank you so much for coming on the show today, and for all the Steeler fans who listened and watched the show. We really, really appreciate it. Michael, do we got any questions out there that we can take while Simon's still here?
I have one from I actually had one from Owen Thomas, but I was reading it whenever your Wi-Fi cut out. Good to have your Wi-Fi cut out again, Jeff. It's been a while. Delighted for that to happen. Fred Flunk just says, Jeff, did I tell you before I worked for Don Allen Motors, Bam Boulevard, Pittsburgh in 97-98? The owners brought Rocky Blair in one Friday morning to give us a pep talk. There you go. And then obviously UK Steelers. Can I just give a shout out to all them ones, because we had the Steelers GM on and Tom Rooney on recently, and like the support from the Steelers fans in the UK and Europe and stuff was nuts. So thanks to everybody that done that.
I know that's another thing about the Steelers I love, is because the Rooneys give back to their heritage, to their Irish heritage. They brought an exhibition game over to Croke Park, and I really truly believe that we will see in the next 10 years, we will see the Steelers play in Ireland. I really fully believe that. I think that that's a reality that will happen, and boy, wouldn't that be a special thing.
Don't even start that. Simon, could you imagine booking a flight from London to Dublin for a weekend? Maybe Steelers Bills, Steelers Patriots?
I do it in a second. Our unofficial fifth member of the show is a guy called Mike Farrell. He's he started out as our draft expert because he's so knowledgeable on college football. And he's just an absolute gem, and he's Irish. So I'd go out there. We'd all spend the weekend. He could show us around. It'd be a classic time.
Simon, is that Mike Farrell from Rivals?
No. Oh wait, what's that? Sorry, fill me in.
Rivals.com is it's a recruiting magazine that is really, really knowledgeable on all the high school and college prospects and all that stuff. And then there's a guy named Mike Farrell that's one of their top writers. I don't know if you got Mike Farrell on your show, buddy. You are big time.
I don't think it is. I think we might have a secondary Mike Farrell. Maybe it's a budget version of Mike Farrell. Sorry, Mike.
Hey, man, it's been a blast having you on the show. Thank you, Steeler fans. Keep waving those those terrible towels. And again, awesome interview. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks so much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
All right,
Cheers,
aloha.
Cheers, Simon.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Good luck to the Steelers on Sunday. They play, Jeff was saying to Simon when you were away there, they're playing the Bengals this Sunday, and then they're playing the Packers the Sunday after. Oh, no?
Speaking of Sunday.
All right, okay. Here we go. Look.
Let's look at what we got going this week. Let's start Thursday night. How do you see the Panthers and the Texans?
I mean, Jeff, I was actually saying again, look, I have an easy enough day on Friday, right, in my employer's workplace, and I thought, happy days, Thursday night football. I'm going to stay up and watch it. Oh, it's the Panthers against the Texans.
How do you know it's not going to be a great football game?
Do you know what I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick the Texans for the crack. Just
you are. Interesting. If you're picking them for the crack because Tyrod's not going to play. They're not going to activate Deshaun Watson. How are they going to score points? And on top of it, Carolina's defense is playing extremely well. You know, Carolina can go to 3-0, and I'm going to tell you something. You better watch them if they get to 3-0 because that confidence mojo is pretty strong deal, right? Isn't it amazing in this day and age that you can have one of the top, let's say top 20 players, and that's being conservative, one of the top 20 players in the National Football League on your roster, healthy, you're paying him his full salary, and he doesn't play. Now, how does that make sense?
It's a bit like Jose Mourinho, Jeff, in 2006 when he said to Sky Sports after the game, "If I say anything, I will get in trouble." I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It's crazy. But Jeff, they can hand the ball off to Philip Lindsay.
Yeah, they can hand it off to Philip Lindsay, but I'm going to tell you something. You better be able to play defense. You better be able to score with more than Philip Lindsay because you know the game's changed now. I'm going to tell you something. You're watching a team in Carolina that I think is on the come. Now, I'm not anointing them or making them playoff bound yet, but I'm just telling you they're on the come. Who you got in the second one?
Look, to be honest with you, the Panthers probably win that. Do you know what, Jeff? I'm going with the Chargers. Do you know I've got a fun fact for you, and I know you're a busy man. I know you need to go in 2 wee seconds, but I've got a fun fact if I can find it here right now. Here it is, Jeff. The Chiefs do not hold at least a share of the lead in the AFC West for the first time since the conclusion of Week 16 in 2016.
Are you looking? Let me ask you a question. Are you looking through the win, as you say in Ireland, the windscreen? Are you looking through the rearview mirror
or the pint glass? I am looking at that performance from the Chiefs in Week 1. Yes, they won the game. Yes, they got over the line. Yes, the hallmark of a champion team or a good team is to get over the line in a game like that against the Browns. That Chargers offense intrigues me. If Herbert doesn't throw any picks, if he can connect it without getting any penalties, I think it could be that game. There's a reason that game's on Sky this week, Jeff. That is a hell of a game. I'm picking the Chargers by a field goal.
I think it's a great game. I don't think the Chargers, from what I saw against Dallas, and that was a home game, I don't see the Chargers mature enough yet to win against a team like the Chiefs because they had Dallas where they wanted them on numerous occasions and couldn't close them out. Credit to the Cowboys, but again, when you've got the ball, when you take sacks in field goal range in a close game, when you throw picks in the end zone in field goal range, you take penalties after, taunting penalties after scoring, and you can't line up in the right formation on the 4-yard line. That's not winning football. That's not winning football. And I think the Chiefs just offensively are going to keep the pressure on so much. That's the thing about the Chiefs. The Chiefs have not played good defense yet, but they can just outscore you.
But this is a game where Herbert has to win it. If they want the challenge for the West, they have to win this game and that's one factor as well, Jeff. Whoever loses this game is going to 1-2 in the West. And the Raiders and the Broncos could be going to 3-0.
Whoa! Pump the brakes on the Broncos and the Raiders right now. There's still
I'm just looking at it week to week.
There's still one team that's a class of that division, and it wears red. Michael has definitely, here it is. Owen Thomas from Wales says, Michael has definitely gone mad. Texans and Chargers. That's, hey, Owen, he's a man of he's got his own convictions. All right, let's go to the third one. You like the Bucks or you like the Rams?
What a game. Can we just put one of these teams in the AFC so this can be the Super Bowl? What a game. Where is it at, SoFi? This is the sort of game that you can see the Rams winning and Brady taking that as like revenge throughout the season, and then they play each other again in January. I can't call it. Maybe the Rams by a field goal, Jeff. I think Stafford looks really, really good. But then Tom Brady looks like a 21-year-old man last week, throwing like Mike Evans is reborn, Rob Gronkowski is reborn. Like, I just hope these games are as good as what they look on paper.
Yeah, I think this is a great weekend at Sky, no question. I love this game. I love the Rams. I think it's going to be very close, but I'm going to take the Rams because it's at home.
Okay, fair enough. Tom, at home, that wasn't really a home game for the Chargers on Sunday, was it? There was more Cowboy fans there than...
Oh, stop now.
Packers 49ers, Jeff.
This is turning into a little bit of a rivalry game, isn't it? The Packers and Frisco.
Up in Levi Stadium. I am going to take the 49ers. I think there'd be a decent combination of Jimmy G and Trey Lance. And I really like that 49ers offense. And I think this is a game where George Kittle gets 2 touchdowns.
I'm going to take San Francisco too. And the reason I'm going to take them is I'm not convinced about the Packer defense.
Yeah. And eventually, Jeff, there's only so many times, Jeff, you can hand the ball off to Aaron Jones for 17 weeks. 16 weeks with a bye. That was nuts last night. 4 touchdowns. There is a question from Jay Danahy before we go. We'll just look at Monday Night Football very quickly. The biggest game of the week, Jeff, for some people. The Eagles at the Cowboys. What do you think?
I'm going to take the Cowboys. Again, in spite of a lot of questionable coaching decisions, a lot of, non-production, if you will, of the passing game or whatever. There's something about this Cowboy team. And I think what Dan Quinn has ejected into that defense is all positive. Parsons is a, really, really fine player. It concerns me whether they can rush the passer well enough. But I do think that they will at home. I think they can take the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is it's going to be interesting to see. He's going back to a part of the country he was a star in when he was at the University of Oklahoma. So we'll see how this one plays out. But I like the Cowboys.
Micah Parsons, 8 pressures yesterday. On Sunday, most by a rookie since Nick Bosa in 2019. He looks fresh, man. I think the Cowboys by 10 to 14 points. There is a question from Jay Danahy. Now, Owen Thomas is saying you've gone mad as well. Coach, to play Fields or not to play Fields? Can I just say very quickly, Jeff, right? This whole Fields situation, look, is he ready? No, he's not. Jeff, you don't plug your charger in, right? You don't plug your phone charger in and pull it out when it's 10% charged. Why, Jeff? Because you need it during the day. You need to use it effectively. You don't just put Justin Fields in for the sake of it. I just give him time. I'm very prudent. I want to give guys time. I want them to develop, maybe behind. If it means he's standing there for 17 weeks and he's watching them, Jeff, give him time. But then you've got a problem there with Nagy. He's obviously playing for his job. That's a massive game at the weekend for the Bears as well, going up against the Browns. I wouldn't play him personally, but maybe as a coach, Jeff, you would have a far better opinion than me.
Well, I think there are a lot of what you said I think is really right. I mean, I think, there have been a lot of great coaches that I've listened to say this numerous times. It's better to play a player too late than too early in his career because they can get overmatched and we've seen it so many times with quarterbacks particularly that get in and get overmatched and then they can't recover. And so I think the tendency is to want to put them in because they're the shiny new toy. They're the face of the franchise. They're the thing that's going to save Chicago Bear football. But, you got to look at this as it's a crazy world we live in as coaches because we live in a what have you done for me right now world, right? But in reality, for a lot of players, you know, it's a long-term investment that you want to make in a guy. And so I'm with you. I think I would be cautious with him, very cautious with him. And if he is going to play, I'd be really cautious with what you give him.
Yeah, and look at Zach Wilson, Jeff. You know, maybe he needs time to stand there and watch the game and understand what can he throw, what can he, you know, what can he get away with, what can he not get away with. And I think it's like putting like a child into a secondary school here, like a 10-year-old into like a 16-year-old's class, and they're sitting there like, what's going on here? I don't know. Give it time. It's fine. But I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving the whole fact it's back.
Hey, I got a question.
Great,
I got a question today on Twitter from a Patriot fan, and I'm sorry I couldn't dig it up on my Twitter account, but he asked the question about why do the Patriots continually put Nick Folk on the practice roster? And even though he's, you know, come in and done some pretty good things for him, I think it's really important that people understand that building your roster is a week by week experience, right? You have to satisfy the salary cap, and then you also have a lot of things that you have to play into who you activate and who you deactivate. And so I think Belichick probably is the master of all of that. And certainly if they deactivate Folk, it's because they feel like somebody else gives them a better chance to win on Sunday. You know, and I've heard him say numerous times that every decision that they make and with the Patriots is based on one thing, and that's giving ourselves the best chance to win on Sunday.
Patriots Saints is Sunday. Patriots against the Bucks Sunday week. Oh, big game there, Jeff. That's all I have for you, man. I'm loving the NFL at the minute. It's great to have it back. I can't believe it's back, but always good to talk with you, Jeff. We're like, there was a comment saying that you're on BT Sport again tomorrow night. Hamilton's in BT Sports tomorrow night. Good luck tomorrow night, and it's a matter of weeks now until you're back over here.
Yep, not very long now. Again, Owen and all the guys, everybody that hit us up, all the members of the tribe that hit us up, thank you so much. Awesome edition of Coffee with the Coach. We're closing in on 7-0, are we not?
I would love to tell you exactly the number. I think it's 69 now. I'll get back to you on that. And now I think about it, I think I put the wrong number on the tweet, so it's one more than what it is. My apologies as the producer of the show. Sorry.
Well, Michael, I appreciate it very much. Awesome job, and we will be back next Tuesday with more Coffee with Coach.
See you then.